Good morning and welcome to Bible Study Live. My name's Colin. I'm the pastor of Winslow Christian Fellowship, and Bible Study Live is an hour on Tuesday morning when you see me start to look at the passage that I'm planning to preach on this Sunday. Today we're looking at the feeding of the 4,000. If you've been watching the church services, and then you'll see that we've been going through Mark's Gospel, and last time we did the healing of a deaf man. Did that on Sunday, just gone. And the next passage along is this one. If you want to, you can ask questions. If you're watching live, you can ask questions on the live chat. I've got that here. I can see any questions that pop up, and might well be able to respond to them if I have got an answer in my mind. If you're not, if you're watching it later on in the week, catching up, then great. You can watch it at 1.5 times speed, or twice as fast, and then it doesn't tend to drag as much as I know it does. If you're watching it live, it can drag. I shouldn't say that, but I know it's true. Anyway, I'm going to read the passage now. So it's Mark chapter 8, verses 1 to 21. In those days, when again a great crowd had gathered, and they had nothing to eat, he called his disciples to him and said to them, I have compassion on the crowd, because they have been with me now 3 days, and have nothing to eat. And if I send them away hungry to their homes, they will faint on the way, and some of them have come from far away. And his disciples answered him, How can one feed these people with bread here in this desolate place? And he asked them, How many loaves do you have? They said 7. And he directed the crowd to sit down on the ground. And he took the 7 loaves, and having given thanks, he broke them, and gave them to his disciples to set before the people, and they set them before the crowd. And they had a few small fish. And having blessed them, he said that these also should be set before them. And they ate and were satisfied. And they took up the broken pieces left over, 7 baskets full. And there were about 4,000 people. And he sent them away. And immediately he got into the boat with his disciples and went to the district of Dalman. The Pharisees came and began to argue with him, seeking from him a sign from heaven to test him. And he sighed deeply in his spirit and said, Why does this generation seek a sign? Truly I say to you, no sign will be given to this generation. And he left them, got into the boat again, and went to the other side. Now they had forgotten to bring bread, and they had only one loaf with them in the boat. And he cautioned them, saying, "Watch out, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and the leaven of Herod." And they began discussing with one another the fact that they had no bread. And Jesus, aware of this, said to them, "Why are you discussing the fact that you have no bread? Do you not yet perceive or understand? Are your hearts hardened? Having eyes, do you not see? And having ears, do you not hear? And do you not remember? When I broke the 5 loaves for the 5,000, how many baskets full of broken pieces did you take up?" They said to him, 12. "And the 7 for the 4,000, how many baskets full of broken pieces did you take up?" And they said to him, 7. And he said to them, "Do you not yet understand?" Louise says hi. Hi, Louise. Do you not yet understand? That's the big question that's going on at the moment, I think. And we looked at the healing of a deaf man, and looking at it very much in terms of being a metaphor of comprehension, understanding. If you can't hear what Jesus is saying, you can't understand him. But here he's talking about, do you have ears to hear and yet you don't understand? You're not hearing. So so this is a kind of repeat, isn't it? This healing of the feeding of the 4,000 is repeating a miracle that he did a couple of chapters ago, the feeding of the 5,000. But there is obviously the difference in numbers, the number of people that were fed. It's 1,000 less this time. There's a number of loaves used. There were 5 to feed the 5,000. There's 7 being used to feed the 4,000. It doesn't specify how many fish. It says a few fish, whereas the feeding of the 5,000, it were 5 fish. So there's the obvious differences in numbers, and the 7 basketfuls being collected at the end here, whereas the feeding of the 5,000, there were 12 basketfuls being collected at the end. But a few things that jumped out. One of them was in verse 4, desolate place. That was something that cropped up. They kept talking about this a desolate place in the feeding of the 5,000, so that's a kind of call back there. What was the other thing that I thought I spotted something else that made me think again of a specific feeding of the 5,000 reference. Well, I'm sure I come across it. I can't remember what it was now as I was reading through it. Far away. They've come from far away. It's an interesting phrase. Anyway, we'll get to that. I'm not sure where this is. I was assuming that we're still in Gentile territory, because he's been in Tyre and Sidon for the Syro-Phoenician woman, and then the healing of the deaf man was Decapolis, which is still Gentile territory. Now it doesn't say that he's left Gentile territory, but it does say in those days. So is it saying while he's still around the Gentiles in their territory? I think I'm going to have to do some, because the only reference is to he got into the boat with his disciples and went to the district of Dalman. So I'm going to want to have a look at a map, because who knows where Dalmanutha is. And it says some manuscripts say Magadan or Magdala. Mary Magdala comes from Magdala, presumably. See if we can find Dalmanutha on a map. Okay. I know I usually go through it verse by verse, but just trying to get a bit of an overview at this point. Where's the places? Biblical places, no results. That's interesting. Oh, verse 10, that's what we want, not verse 9. I've put it as trying to focus things onto verse 10. There we are, the verse with the Dalman reference, and I sent it to verse 9. Okay, so we got, there's Magadan, a picture of Magadan. Biblical people, places. A place located on the Sea of Galilee to which Jesus sailed following the feeding of 4,000 people in Mark's parallel account. It is called Dalman. So, okay, Matthew calls it Magadan. At Mark 8:10 there are textual variants that includes Magdala. Okay, we've seen that footnote. And Magadan, and as the name of this location, but based on the witnesses that support these readings, it is likely that these readings are scribal corrections to align Mark's account with Matthew's. To complicate matters further, some textual witnesses at Matthew 15:39, after Jesus sent the crowd away, he got into the boat and went to the vicinity of Magadan, read Magadan, while others read Magedan with an E instead of an A. These are also likely later changes that are not original to the text. Oh, thank you for that. That's lots of speculation and not much help. Here's a map. So this is the tyre and side-on bit. But that's Caesarea Philippi. So this is the Decapolis, this area here, just outside of Israel, but we don't know where. Let's have a look at this other map. It's probably one of these places that nobody actually knows where it is. So you've got Tyre and Sidon, and then you've got Decapolis down here. They're actually quite a long way away from each other, but they're definitely, they have that theme in common, that they're Gentile territory. So we don't know where Jesus has gone, where this feeding of 4,000 happened, and whether he's still a Gentile themed part of his ministry. Yeah. Okay, well, we'll have to deal with that. The unknown. That's part of studying the Bible, is that it's not always as clear as crystal. We have to deal with the unknowns. So verse 1 says, in those days when again a great crowd had gathered and they had nothing to eat, he called his disciples to him and said to them, in those days is a bit vague, isn't it? A bit vague. Does it mean during his Gentile territory phase. We don't know if Jesus is in Gentile. territory at the moment. But there's a repeat of the situation back in chapter... when was the feeding of the 5,000 exactly? Which chapter was that? That is chapter 6. Back in chapter 6. I'll repeat the situation back in chapter 6 when a crowd followed Jesus and he fed them miraculously. It seems likely that this is a repeat, but for a new group, that is the non-Jews. Yeah. So, Jesus called his disciples to him because we know what Jesus does, or how Jesus approaches. How Jesus deals with hungry people. He gets his disciples to feed them. Okay. So, verse 2, I have compassion on the crowd because they have been with me now 3 days and have nothing to eat. Jesus laying it out for his disciples, telling them that it is his compassion that makes him want to feed the people. So the crowd have been with him for 3 days without food. They must really want to be with Jesus. I often make decisions based on my stomach's needs. I can't imagine choosing to follow preacher around for 3 days without eating. They have been with me for 3 days and have nothing to eat. That's how much of an impact Jesus was having on people. Shows just how impact Jesus was having, that his teaching was like food. I won't say drink, but yeah, it would be probably, it was like food for these people. So there's a question, isn't it? Are you spiritually hungry? Jesus is the best food for the soul. So verse 3. Verse 3 says, "And if I send them away hungry to their homes, they will faint on the way, and some of them have come from far away." Yeah. This is the problem. Their physical needs are important. Churches should care about pardon, suddenly need to sneeze. Churches should care about the physical needs of people, their spiritual and eternal spiritual needs and eternal destiny. Is their primary and often unfelt need. But the basic needs of food, shelter, safety, social interaction, etc. are really important, and so we should have compassion on those who lack these things for whatever reason. Some of them have come from far away, said Jesus. Far away, macrothen. So far away is one word, it would seem. A far distance. wonder if that's telling us that they are Gentiles. I know that the phrase far away, which is I should have let's check out these from a distance far off. It's often used to talk about the Gentiles. They are the far away people. Sometimes used to talk about phrase far away refers to the fact that they were simply different from the Jews, but also that they were far away from God. Jesus is having compassion on a people who are far away from God. Alright, verse 4. And his disciples answered him, "How can one feed these people with bread here in this desolate place?" Seems like a funny question, considering 2 chapters earlier he fed the 5,000 in a desolate place. The disciples ask a question that they should know the answer to, because they've seen Jesus feed 5,000 people in a desolate place. There's a definite call back to the feeding of the 5,000 with the phrase desolate place, or what's the NIV calling it? Remote place. Yeah. Remote place. Desolate. Aramea. I'm sure, is it the same as chapter 6? Feeding the 5,000, desolate place, Eremos. Yeah, Eremos or Aramea. They were like, he had compassion on them. This is a desolate place. The hour is now late. So it's a callback with that phrase, but it's not used as many. It seems like they use the phrase at a desolate place quite a lot with the feeding of the 5,000, but here I think this is it. And that phrase is a call back to the people of God wandering in the desert, when Moses was their leader and God provided bread. So this story is coming together to be another callback to Israel's history being repeated under Jesus. Only this time, the clues suggest that Israel's history is being repeated under Jesus for the Gentiles. They're now playing the role of the people of God. This is Israel's history being repeated under Jesus yet again. But this time it seems that the Gentiles are taking the place of God's people in this reenactment. That's quite impressive. And then verse 5. And he asked them, "How many loaves do you have?" They said, 7. This is repeating almost word for word. Jesus asked them about the number of loaves of bread, and they told him. The question just highlights the impossibility of the situation. There's definitely not enough food. The number 7 is the perfect number in the Bible. Why is that important? Don't know. Let's go on to verse number 6. And he directed the crowd to sit down on the ground. And he took the 7 loaves, and having given thanks, he broke them and gave them to his disciples to set before the people, and they set them before the crowd. And this is repeating very closely what happened with feeding of the 4,000. Sit down. Take loaves, give thanks, broke bread, gave to disciples. He broke them and gave them to his disciples to set before the people, and they set them before the crowd. Yeah. They distributed. So that's very similar. And then you've got a difference there in verse 7. I say verse 8, that's 6. Verse 7. And they had a few small fish, and having blessed them, he said that these also should be set before them. This is slightly different. We don't know how many fish. It specifies that the fish are small and they seem to be handing these fish out separately, whereas the feeding of the 5,000, it all happened together. What's the significance of that? The fact that the fish are suddenly relegated to second place? I don't know. It's a two-stage thing. Certainly the feeding of the healing of the deaf man was a two-stage miracle. Touch his ears, then touch his mouth. The healing of the man born blind was 2 stages. Is that is the fact that it's done in 2 stages significant? Oh, yeah, who knows? Well, that's a question that I'll leave hanging, and maybe as the week goes on I'll figure out an answer. Verse 8. And they ate and were satisfied, and they took up the broken pieces left over, 7 baskets full. Another repeat of the previous miracle. Eat satisfied. I'm pretty sure that's true of the previous one. They ate, they satisfied. Baskets of broken pieces. This time it's 7 baskets. Exactly the same amount of loaves of bread. We weren't told the number of fish because that doesn't matter. What matters is that there were 7 loaves of bread and there are 7 baskets. You need never go hungry, disciples. I think Jesus is saying something along those lines. You serve, you give all of yourself, and I will provide for you. I think. We're not told the amount of fish because that doesn't matter. What matters is 7 loaves leads to 7 baskets of leftovers. The full amount. It's like they've ended with the full amount. They need never worry about having enough. When you give all that you have to Jesus, He will make sure that you always have enough. Seven baskets full. Now we're told how many people there were. 4,000. It's like it's as if it's saying, don't count the numbers before, just trust that there will be enough. Jesus is the provider. No matter the need. The people were then sent away. Verse 10, and immediately he got into the boat with his disciples and went to the district of Dalman, wherever that is. And sent the people away. Jesus and his disciples also went away. Where is Dalman? It must be a town on the shore of a body of water, because they went there by boat. Shore of Galilee. Probably. We know it's a lake because in verse 13, he gets back in the boat and goes to the other side. So it must be a lake, and Lake of Sea of Galilee is the most likely lake. So Dalmanutha must be on the lake side. I'm going to have a look down here at verse 10 in the commentary. The identity of Dalmanutha is unknown. Matthew says Jesus went to the vicinity of Magdala. Yeah, we know that. Dalmanutha or Magdala, located on the western shore of the Lake of Galilee, may have been names for the same place or two places located near each other. This is the only reference anywhere to the name Dalmanutha. So the western shore, that's given us a clue at least. The western shore of the Sea of Galilee or Lake of Galilee tells us that Jesus is back. Well, he's gone into Israelite territory, Jewish territory. Dalmanutha is Jewish territory, which means that 11 to 13 is a brief interlude of Jesus getting back to Gentile territory, out of Gentile territory, back to Jewish territory, meeting with the Pharisees who have a go at him, and so he just leaves, goes back to the other side. So he's kind of having enough of these Jews, these religious Jews. Does that mean he's just been in Gentile territory? Not necessarily, but quite likely, especially as he goes to the other side in a couple of verses. Anyway, let's get into the Pharisees. So it's not just about the feeding of the 4,000, it's about what happened after and how it relates to the feeding of the 4,000. The Pharisees came and began to argue with him, seeking from him a sign from heaven to test him. A sign from heaven. This guy never does anything interesting. Let's ask him to do a sign from heaven. As soon as Jesus returns to home turf, Jewish testimony, he's under attack